Daily Bible time. Good morning, Dominic Steele for a Thursday morning, and there's a contrast in sentence 12 of 1 Corinthians 2 between the Spirit of God and the Spirit of the world. Paul says of the Christian that we have not received the Spirit of the world, but we have received the Spirit of God. Now a little bit more on the Spirit of God. Let's take it from verse 10. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. Verse 11, for who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the man's spirit within him? And the point here is that like knows like. You can't get to know me by doing a scientific test on me. I mean, you can discover a little bit. You can discover by doing scientific tests that I have a little bald spot on my lip just here. You could discover that I have some sort of spinal disease, some sort of back problem. You can discover some things, but you can't know my heart. You can't know my thoughts. Not even my wife Catherine really knows all my thoughts. I mean, I try to tell her, but she says, actually, Dominic, I haven't got time for this. There's lunches to be made, there's dishes to be washed, there's people to be organised. I can't sit around all day listening to you. Only my spirit, my inner being, really knows me. And in the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. You can't get to know me, Dominic, by rational reflection, by empirical observation. The only way you can get to know me is by revelation, if I reveal me to you. And it is the Spirit of God that reveals to us the thoughts of God, the inner knowledge of God. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 12. We have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we may understand what God has freely given us. It is God's Spirit that enables us to understand what did God freely give us. The Spirit enables us to understand that what God freely gave us was his very own Son, who died on the cross. Verse 13, this is what we speak, not in words taught us by human wisdom, but in words taught us by the Spirit, expressing spiritual truths in spiritual words. When we invite the people around us in the inner west to come along to church, that's what we do. We're speaking the spiritual truths of the cross of Jesus dying on our behalf when we invite them to introducing God. Now, the Spirit of God is very different to the world's spirit. God's Spirit is on about us understanding the mind of God by God through his Spirit revealing himself to us. That's just so different to the world's spirit. The world's spirit starts not with God but with us and with our wisdom. And people come up with all sorts of ideas about how to get right with God, but none of those ideas involve God doing it all and then revealing it totally to us and us just saying thank you. I mean, at the Australian Museum, there was an Aboriginal exhibition, and one of the features in it was a section on spirituality, and the exhibition held up as a great thing that there was a syncretism of Christian spirituality and Indigenous spirituality. Here's what one tribal elder said. Our people, before the white people came, were a very spiritual people. They were connected to land and creation through the Great Spirit. There was a good, great, and great evil spirit, and Satan was the great evil one. So there wasn't much difference in what the missionaries brought and what we already had. Now, is he right? Is Aboriginal spirituality and Christian spirituality basically the same? Where in Aboriginal spirituality does it have that the maker of the universe sends his Son so that we can be right with him? Now, it's the spirit of the world that wants to say that all religion is the same and it doesn't matter which one you have, that it's just a matter of preference. I read this guy, Charles Krauthammer, telling the story in Time magazine of going to hospital, and he was checking in for some tests, and a hospital clerk asked him the usual questions: a name, address, rank, serial number, Medicare number. And then the lady asked Mr. Krauthammer, what's your religious preference? And he wrote in Time magazine, I was tempted to say I think Buddhism's the coolest, but I happen to be Jewish. But then he wrote, I thought better of that, and so I thought I'd try out, I'm a Hebrew man, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. But he actually then reflected, if he said that, he'd probably get sent to psychiatry, not x-ray. So Mr. Krauthammer said, in ancient times they used to ask, who's your God? And then a generation ago they asked, what's your religion? And today they ask, what's your religious preference? Where you fill in the profile on Facebook. I like my coffee white with wine. I like my wine red. My shirt starched. My sex straight. And put me down for Christianity. It's all just preference. Who cares? Makes no difference whether it's yoga in daily life or going along to village church. That's the spirit of the world. Spirit of the world says just preference. Doesn't matter. But the Spirit of God says, let me tell you something hidden before time began. Let me tell you, before time began, you were unacceptable to God, but you were destined for glory before time began. And let me tell you how it happened. Before time began, in God's extraordinary wisdom, he came up with a plan to send his Son to earth to be crucified to achieve that. That is the wisdom of God. Thanks for joining us on Daily Bible Time. If you liked what you heard, well, click like on this post. And I will look forward to your company tomorrow morning, Friday morning, for Daily Bible Time.